I'm Diane from Animal Aid's education team. We're very active and we have a network of volunteer school speakers who give talks and cookery demonstrations in schools and remotely. And we're very enthusiastic about vegan cooking and vegan food. We don't feel we miss out and we have lots of choice, and that's what I want to tell you about today. I'm here at home in my own kitchen and I'm going to focus today on replacing meat in meals. So I'm going to be cooking an Asian stir-fry dish called pad thai and also spaghetti bolognese, an Italian favourite. All the ingredients I'm going to use today are available in UK supermarkets and they're all vegan. If you go into any supermarkets, you'll see a huge array of ready meals that are vegan, and these are very convenient because you can just pop them in the oven or the microwave. But it's much more fun to create your own food using fresh ingredients, and that's what we're going to be doing today, and I hope some of you will try these recipes. So the two meals I'm doing today are going to be using direct replacements as a substitute for meat, and they have a similar taste and texture to meat. Now you might say, well, why as a vegan do you want to eat something that has a similar texture and taste to meat? But remember that many of us originally did eat meat, and we didn't give it up because we didn't like the taste of it, but because of animals or other reasons. So these are very useful products. And of course it's very useful too for people who are transitioning to a vegan diet. It makes it easier for them. I'm sure some of you have tried some of the convenience foods like the burgers and the sausages that are available. So for instance, Linda McCartney sausages are very popular for barbecues or if you're having bangers and mash, very easy to cook. And you might have tried some different types of veggie burgers. These are from Iceland and reasonably priced. But you know, what one person likes, another person might not enjoy. So it's really worth trying all the different types of convenience foods. You might prefer hot and spicy burgers by Quorn. They label them clearly with vegan in the corner. And you can even get sandwich slices. The supermarkets do their own make, or you can get these tofurkey ones, which are brilliant for quick sandwiches. There have been some amazing developments in California where they've created the Impossible Burger and the Beyond Burger. Some people might find them a little bit too realistic, but they're very useful for people who are transitioning to a vegan diet. Most of the products that I'm talking about today, the meat replacements, are made from wheat, protein and soya. Soya is a bean, a pulse, very like baked beans, and it's so versatile, so nutritious. And I hope that you're going to find that it's also really tasty once you try some of these recipes that I'm going to create today. So let's get cooking. I'm going to make a vegan pad thai, which is a spicy stir fry. Today I'm going to be using an alternative to meat, which is this Naked Glory roast tender strips, they're calling it, which is good. I've used it before and it does have a meaty texture. You could use alternatives because we all have our favourites. So all the supermarkets have their own replacements for chicken. There's one here from Sainsbury's, which is Plant Pioneers. There's one called It Isn't Chicken. And if you didn't want to use a meat replacement, you could use tofu. So the onion is chopped, and what I tend to do is prepare the vegetables first, because with a stir fry you're going to be cooking really quickly. So have your vegetables all prepared on the chopping board or in a bowl, and then you can quickly stir fry everything and bring everything together quite quickly. So I'm going to pop my onion in a bowl ready. any vegetables you like. You don't need to use the vegetables I'm using today, and that's the wonder of this dish. You can use leftover vegetables that you happen to have in the fridge. You can use things like mushrooms, green beans, and so on. I'm going to be using a carrot. This serves 2 people, but you can bulk it out, obviously, to serve more people. I'm also going to put in a red pepper. It's nice to have a contrast of colours and textures with this. So with your red pepper, usually I just split it down the middle like that and then just hollow out the middle so that you don't waste any of it. So I'm just using half a pepper for this recipe, and I'm cutting it into fairly thin strips, which I'm then going to cut in half across. And I'm going to put those in my bowl ready. And I'm also going to chop up my spring onions in preparation. They're going to go in at the end. And some will be reserved for garnish as well. And when we do the cooking, we start off with the biggest pieces of vegetables or the ones with the most texture, the harder vegetables, like the carrots. We're going to pop those in first. So I'm just putting my spring onions into a dish. So we have those ready. To give this meal lots of flavour, we're going to be using garlic, ginger and chilli. We're also going to be adding some lime juice and some soy sauce. So with the garlic, if you are buying garlic, we call this a whole bulb of garlic. I'm going to use 2 of the cloves that you break off. So we want it to be quite nice and garlicky. So simply peel the garlic, peel the skin off it. And you can either use a garlic press or simply chop it with your knife. I also mentioned the ginger that we're going to be using. So this is root ginger that you can buy from any supermarket. It's in with the vegetables. And I'm going to cut off about 1 centimetre of it. That depends on the thickness, obviously, of the root you've got, but it's about that much. So just peel it. You could peel it with a spoon or a knife. It's very soft, the skin. You don't have to peel it apparently, but I normally like to peel it. Sometimes it's a bit woody. Not so nice, but this is nice and succulent. So I've taken the skin off, and again I'm going to just chop that quite finely, or you could use a grater and just grate it straight into your pan. And we're going to be popping that in at the same time as the garlic, so those two can mix together a little. Okay, so we've got all the vegetables ready. Another vegetable I'm going to be using is bean sprouts, which you can buy very cheaply from supermarkets. These are actually made obviously from beans. You can grow your own. These give a nice little crunch. They're also really high in vitamin C. So those are going to go in at the end because they're crunchy. You want to maintain the crunchiness, but they can be spoilt if you overcook them. And I'm also going to be popping in just a little bit of shredded cabbage. If you can't get the bean sprouts, or you don't like bean sprouts, you can use something like a green cabbage or a white cabbage instead. So I'm going to be using this wok today, but if you haven't got a wok, you can use any pan, a frying pan or a large saucepan. Just warm about a tablespoonful of vegetable oil. Get that nice and hot, ready to put in your first ingredient, which is going to be the onion. So when you want to test to see if the oil's hot enough, just pop in a little bit of onion, and that's just about sizzling now, so it's hot enough to put in the rest of it. Be careful though when you're adding anything to hot fat. You can hear that sizzling. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a stir fry, so we're going to be cooking everything quite quickly. It's just starting to soften now. And so I'm going to add the garlic and the ginger. And we've already got some really nice flavouring in there, a nice strong flavour for this meal. We don't want to burn the garlic, so just be a little careful. Keep everything moving. And now we're going to add the carrot. Keep everything moving again, stir frying, moving around your pan. The chicken alternative that I'm using is already cooked. If you were using something like the Planked Pioneers chicken chunks, which are more like cubes, you do need to cook them first. So they recommend you cook them in the oven. But there are many products that you can get that are already cooked. And they're obviously a bit more convenient. So we've got that going nicely now. And we're going to put in some broccoli. So the broccoli I've put into just small pieces like that. And don't forget that you can use the stem of the broccoli, not the very end, which might be a little bit woody, but the actual stem can be used if you peel it and chop it. It's really nice in stir fry. So we're going to pop these pieces in as well. And again, everything is being coated with the oil. So now I'm going to put the red pepper in. So these vegetables that I put in earlier are almost cooked now. I'm going to use a bit of green cabbage. It doesn't have to be cooked for very long at all. And I'm also going to be using some of the bean sprouts. Make sure your bean sprouts are nice and fresh. You don't want any that have gone a bit slimy. They need to be lovely and crisp and white. So we gently stir those in. It's smelling really nice now. I'm going to pop in about half a teaspoonful of chili flakes. These are really useful. You could use a red chili a little bit earlier on as well. That would be very good. But I'm going to pop about a teaspoonful of the chili, half a teaspoonful rather of the chili flakes in, and get those nicely mixed in so that they're evenly distributed. And I'm now going to pop in those chicken pieces, the vegan chicken pieces, as an alternative to chicken. So these are the Naked Glory ones, they're ready cooked. some of the pieces might be a little bit big, so you can always shred them up a bit. They do actually look quite like chicken. And I'm also going to put in some spring onions, so these are really tasty and make it more authentic, but I'm reserving a few for garnish at the end. So those little slices of the spring onions bring quite a lot of colour to the dish and taste as well. To bring even more flavouring in, I'm going to pop in the juice of half a lime. Just quickly squeezing that. Brings a bit of moisture in as well as the flavour. And I'm going to be using some soy sauce too. If you want to, you can add a little bit of sesame oil, which brings a lovely flavour to it. And just stir that through now. So this is quite nicely cooked now, but still with a bit of bite. And I'm now going to stir in my noodles, which make it into the dish it is. So I've already cooked some noodles. I have used some wholemeal noodles, wheat noodles, but you can use white ones. You can use some that are already cooked. You can get many packs where they're already cooked. These just had to be boiled for a couple of minutes and they were done. And I'm just going to gently stir the noodles into the vegetables. And at this stage you can add a little bit more oil, a little bit more soy sauce, some more chilli. Just gently stir those in and it's a really delicious meal. And there we are, vegan pad thai with vegan chicken pieces. We'll use a spoon as well for that. It's certainly very colourful, and that's the thing with vegan food. You've got all the different colours, all the different tastes and textures. And what you can do now is add some extra toppings like some cashew nuts, some roasted cashews, some toasted sesame seeds, and obviously the spring onions that I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to be popping the spring onions on. And I've got some black sesame seeds. These are really attractive, and also sesame seeds are actually very high in calcium. So I'm going to pop a few of those on. And now I'm going to add some toasted cashews. So there we have a delicious and healthy pad thai Asian stir fry with vegan chicken pieces, and I think most meat eaters would enjoy this. Who doesn't enjoy a hearty bowl of spaghetti bolognese? With our family, it is a firm favourite. It's real comfort food, and you don't need to cook it with meat. So this meal I'm going to cook today is very quickly made. We don't need to simmer it for hours like the traditional spaghetti bolognese. We're going to be using a mince, a veggie mince, which doesn't need a lot of cooking. So the one I'm going to use is this meat-free mince from Tesco. It only costs £1.75 for 454 grams, so it's really good value, and it's used straight from frozen. I've already chopped an onion, so I'm going to warm some olive oil in my pan, about a tablespoonful of olive oil, or you could use another vegetable oil. It's more traditional to use olive oil. Just warm it gently. Prepare your onion, chopped or sliced, and then when that's cooked a little bit, we're going to be putting in the garlic. So just test the oil. If it sizzles, then it's ready to go in. That's just starting to sizzle. So pop that in. So while this is cooking, I'm going to chop the garlic. I'm taking off the skin. Sometimes it's pink or white garlic, is perfectly okay. But if you are buying garlic, just check that the bulb itself isn't grey, because that might mean that it's gone a little bit mouldy. So it needs to be nice and firm. So I've got 3 lovely chunky cloves of garlic that I'm going to chop. You can use a garlic press if you prefer. So the garlic's chopped. I'm going to put that in. If you put it in too early, it can catch. If you put it in straight at the beginning, you could get burnt garlic, and you don't want that. So just gently stirring that in. You do want it to cook a little bit. I'm also going to add a bay leaf, which does give quite an authentic flavour. Just stir that in. We'll take that out at the end of cooking. It's not essential. You don't have to have a bay leaf. You can buy them from any shops, any supermarkets, or you can grow your own if you have a garden or a terrace. So stir that in. And I'm going to add a pepper. This is a lovely red pepper that I've got here. You could use a yellow pepper or an orange one. Green one works well as well, but some people find green a little bit more bitter. So it depends on your taste. Taking all the inside out, so that you're not wasting any. And we remove those little seeds as well. And it's easier to cut your pepper up if it's that way up. So I'm going to cut it into strips. And then each strip I'm going to chop into smaller pieces acrossways. So the pepper's chopped. And we're going to pop that in now because the garlic is cooked. Give that a lovely stir around. Get that cooking. Probably for about 5 minutes. I'm also going to put in some mushrooms, which I've already prepared. So I've chopped these mushrooms. They're quite small because this is more of a sauce. It's not a chunky dish. So I'm going to pop those into the pan with the peppers. So I'm just stirring those in. They just need cooking for about another 2 minutes. And nicely coated with the oil. And again, if somebody in the family doesn't like mushrooms, you could add a different vegetable, or you could add a little bit more of the veggie mince. In fact, you can make a really nice spaghetti bolognese sauce using different types of mushrooms, finely chopped, because they do have a meaty texture. So they're pretty well cooked now. I'm also going to add some flavourings. I've already mentioned the bay leaf and obviously the garlic, that gives a good flavour and a lovely smell now. but I'm going to put in about a teaspoonful of dried oregano, and I'm also going to put in some dried basil. You don't have to use dried basil, you could use fresh, or you could use both. Just put a little less of the dried in. So I'm going to tip that in and just stir the vegetables so that they're coated in the herbs, and that's smelling gorgeous now. The next thing I'm going to put in is a can of chopped tomatoes. You could use fresh or you could use whole tomatoes. So those are just going to be poured straight in. And bring that up a little bit, bring the heat up a little bit, get that simmering. We're also going to add about 50 ml of water. And the all-important veggie mince. So I've weighed out about 120 grams of the veggie mince, which, as you can see, is frozen. This is the beauty of it, you can use it straight from frozen and it's perfectly safe to use. It's already cooked. And that will absorb all those lovely flavours that we have there. If it seems a little bit thick, you can always add a little bit more water. I'm also going to be putting in some tomato puree, which is very, very good at thickening sauces and making them nice and rich. About 2 tablespoonfuls of tomato puree, or 2 big squirts like that, and just incorporate that. Depending on how much salt you consume, you could add a little bit of salt as well. There is a bit of salt in the veggie mince, but I like to add a bit too. It's just about half a teaspoonful there that we're adding. And I'm going to leave that to simmer for 15 minutes if possible, and giving it an occasional stir, because that means that the sauce will thicken and you become nice and rich, and all those flavours will merge together. That looks good now, and while it's been cooking, I've boiled up some spaghetti that normally takes about 10 minutes. That's all ready for us to serve. I am just going to add a few basil leaves, fresh basil leaves to it. So we normally get them from the supermarket ready packaged, or if you've got a plant you can just take a few bits off. And these are easily available from supermarkets as well, the growing plants. Just mix a few of those leaves in. Give it a nice bit of colour and that extra zing of basil. I'm also going to add some black pepper, freshly ground black pepper, a few squeezes of that. And do taste it to see if it's got enough pepper in and if you need any additional salt, but always check before you add more. I'm going to add just a little bit of extra oil. You don't need to do that, but it just finishes it off a little bit. A little bit of extra olive oil. And I've got my spaghetti ready cooked. And we're going to serve a good helping. This serves about 4 people, and it's a very economical dish as well as really delicious. Scatter on a few basil leaves at the end as a garnish. I hope you've enjoyed finding out about replacing meat in meals, and I hope you're going to try these recipes. And why not go to your local supermarket and find out about the latest products that are available? Look out for those signs that they're vegan.